Please welcome Director of Large Enterprises at Slack, Renu Gupta.
Thank you, everyone, for attending our Slack for Sales breakout session. My name is Renu Gupta. I am the director here for Large Enterprise Sales. The goal of these next 40 minutes is for you to hear and learn from 3 different sales leaders on how they use Slack for Sales to increase operational efficiencies within the sales cycle. So before we get started, a little bit housekeeping. Please submit your questions. This is a presentation and a Q&A panel. Go to slido.com, submit your questions, enter code SLACK, select the Pathfinder room. We will get to as many questions as we can, and for those that we don't, we will answer within the app. So with that, let's get started. How many of you use Slack for work today? Great. And how many of you are in sales or support sales? All right, so for those of you who have your hands up, you guys are very familiar with what a sales cycle looks like. For those of you who don't, I will give you a very simplified view of what a typical sales cycle looks like. So first, you engage your customer. You understand their needs, and you align them to your solution set. This then helps you build a business case. What value, what benefit will they get from buying your solution? Once both parties are in agreement of the value, the fun starts. You start negotiating the commercial terms with legal and procurement. Finally, once all the red is gone, you close the deal and you start managing the deployment towards success. Now, one thing to remember is that the sales cycle does not end here. Once you close the deal, you are back at the beginning of your sales cycle, re-engaging your customer, rebuilding a business case, renegotiating terms. And because the sales cycle truly never ends, and you are at each cycle repeating the cycle, and there's new people entering and exiting the sales cycle as well as processes, there are many places where communication can break down. Slack solves for this problem by providing a more streamlined communication that helps bring every variable and person on the same page at all times. IDC did a research on the business value of Slack, and in particular, Slack for Sales. And what they found was organizations that use Slack for Sales had a 21% faster response time to sales leads. They saw a reduction by 13% in the overall sales cycle, and they saw that organizations that use Slack for Sales had a 5% more chance likelihood of closing the deal. So today you're going to hear from 3 different sales leaders on how they use Slack for Sales, and I would like to welcome them now. So please welcome Davey Friedman, Consumer Sales Manager from WeWork, Eraj Siddiqui, Customer Success Director from Autodesk, and Dannie Herzberg, Senior Director of Mid-Market Sales from Slack. All right, take it away, Davey.
Thanks, Renu. How's everybody doing? Awesome. My name is Davey Friedman, and I lead the Northern California sales team at WeWork. WeWork offers individuals and organizations access to a desk or an office or a headquarters or an entire building in hundreds of cities all around the world. In the 6 years since I joined WeWork, it's been a long time, we've scaled from 8 locations globally to over 420, from 8,000 members to over 500,000, and from 90 employees to over 12,000. In order to achieve that much growth in so short a period of time, we needed to build a sales organization that was capable of doubling the business year over year, and Slack has played a really important role in helping us to do that. In 2016, we rolled out Slack to solve 2 core problems. First is that our salespeople weren't collaborating effectively across departments. And collaboration at WeWork is especially challenging because our sales teams are widely distributed across a lot of WeWork locations. They don't sit together on a regular basis, and nevertheless, they need to be able to coordinate extremely quickly with multiple departments, construction, development, IT, legal, in order to close a sale. So that was the first major problem. Second major problem is that we weren't using Salesforce enough to log our sales activity and to manage pipeline. Adopting Salesforce was an urgent priority for the business because we were scaling so rapidly, and so we needed the visibility and predictability that Salesforce provides. In sum, we were doing pretty great, but also in a really tough predicament, which is that we were in hyper growth, but we weren't able to maximize the opportunity because we weren't collaborating effectively or managing our sales process in a scalable way. We rolled out Slack to help address these things, and you can see here sort of the core benchmarks of our Slack rollout. First was a comprehensive migration from GChat to Slack. Prior to Slack, our teams relied primarily on GChat for communication, which works okay for communication one-to-one, me to you, but what happens when I need to communicate one-to-many? At WeWork, this one-to-many communication need is constant. We constantly need to bring groups of stakeholders together to make a decision quickly about a deal. For example, would we be able to change the layout of an office for a particular customer who had a unique use case? GChat communication, like bringing people together via GChat to try to make that decision, wasted critical time and effort, which diminishes our response time to the customer, which brings unnecessary risk into the deal. So to address this, when we transitioned to Slack, we tried to do a comprehensive migration, which entailed shutting off GChat completely, forcing this comprehensive shift, and preventing any GChat holdouts. The next step was creating sales channels, and this was definitely the most fun part. Because our sales teams are physically distributed from each other, reps often feel disconnected from the buzz of a high-energy sales environment. But sales channels have replaced that physical sales floor and have become the beating heart of our sales team because they're really the next best thing to standing shoulder to shoulder with your team. That's why we refer to our sales announcements channel in Slack that you see here as our digital sales floor. Having a digital sales floor in Slack allows us to connect and inspire each other through things like sharing best practices, coaching, celebrating wins, just like we would be able to do more easily if we sat next to each other side by side. Participants that you can see in this channel include salespeople, cross-functional partners, leadership, even the community management teams that are responsible for operating our buildings on a daily basis. Even they're included so that everybody can join in celebrating the amazing new members who are joining the WeWork community every day. Another productive way that we use channels is around specific deals that require cross-functional stakeholders to collaborate quickly and come to a decision. The channel you see here is a channel that we created for a specific account, which we do commonly for larger opportunities, so that all the people involved across departments are in the loop from the beginning. And what this allows us to do is that it allows us to overcome roadblocks, make decisions quickly, bring deals across the finish line. The last step in our Slack rollout was partnering with Troops to integrate Slack with Salesforce. The goal here was to actually use Slack to improve our team's adoption of another tool, Salesforce. What WeWork cares about most as it relates to Salesforce is a unique custom object called a tour. And the tour is so important because in WeWork, we're selling a physical product. We're selling an office and a building. And that tour, where we walk a prospect through the space, is really the most important part of our sales process, equivalent to a demo in a SaaS company. As you can see on the slide, Troops actually posts our tour schedule for the day for every market into Slack. And this tells our salespeople where they need to be. It actually triggers them to go ahead and confirm that customer meeting, which has helped us dramatically reduce the percentage of tours that no-show. Another Troops integration that's been really helpful for us is around larger opportunities. When an opportunity is created in Salesforce above a certain size, Troop will push us a notification in Slack. And this gives us a layer of added visibility and also helps us reinforce the importance of focusing on the largest opportunities that are going to generate the most revenue. In terms of results, I mentioned earlier how dramatically the WeWork business has scaled over the past 3 years. We've tripled in size. We've increased in revenue by a lot. And Slack has been a major part of helping our sales organization mature as quickly as it has. You can see 3 data points here that illustrates Slack's impact on WeWork's growth since 2016. Our conversion rate has increased by 5%. Our sales cycles decreased by 25%, and our average deal size has gone up by 2x. In other words, we're closing more deals, we're closing them way faster, and with much more revenue per deal. How is that possible? Well, the first takeaway is that cross-functional collaboration on Slack is helping us be more efficient. Being more efficient makes us faster, makes us more responsive to customers, who in turn buy from us more quickly, which is why our sales cycle is so much shorter. And a shorter sales cycle means that we're winning more business in every selling period, every month, every quarter, every year, than ever before. The second takeaway is that Slack inspired Salesforce adoption. With the help of troops, Slack helped to instill the importance of using Salesforce to manage pipeline with our teams. More pipeline activity in Salesforce means more outreach and follow-up to customers, which translates into more sales. And this is why our conversion rate has gone up by 5%. Troops also helped us focus on the largest opportunities that drive the most revenue, and that's why our deal size has increased by 2x. And last but certainly not least, Slack has helped us create this digital sales floor that's brought our team together and helped us build an amazing sales culture. As a result, we've gone through this incredible transformation over the last 3 years from a distributed team that feels disconnected, that feels uninspired, into a unified team that feels connected and inspired and truly embodies the notion that selling is a team sport. Thank you.
Thank you, Davey. I love the concept of a digital sales floor. Next, we'll hear from Eraj Siddiqui, Customer Success Director from Autodesk, and how he uses Slack for sales with his distributed teams.
Thank you, Renu. Hi, my name is Eraj Siddiqui. I lead Customer Success Operations at Autodesk. Autodesk creates design software that helps our customers design and make anything. My team in particular is focused on creating programs and processes and technology that helps our global sales organization work more effectively. So as you can imagine, Autodesk is a large and sometimes fragmented organization. We have our institutional knowledge for customer success is spread over many repositories, many different places, which aren't always reliable or interconnected. Content is sometimes hard to find for us. Different teams also have the ability to choose any communication system that they please, thereby making collaboration challenging. Teams and groups also operated in some form of silos, thereby with little collaboration and crossover in some places. So for our convergence on Slack, we focused on rolling out a core set of best practices that really helped us deliver consistent communication across the board, as well as driving adoption in our high-volume channels. So for example, we set up a channel to support our customer success CRM implementation with Gainsight. This active channel has hundreds of active users who come in and converge on the channel on a daily basis and share their best practices and insights in that particular space. We also connected multiple systems to drive their mutual adoption together. For example, we connected a knowledge management system, Guru, with our CRM implementation to drive their mutual success. This is not only a great mechanism for us to spread best practices about those systems, but also to answer questions that are coming up repeatedly. On the customer-facing side, we have created dedicated channels where we share success stories and account wins for our customers in one place from where the content can be shared fairly rapidly. This is an example of a success stories channel that we have created, where the dedicated stories are both relevant and engaging and can be shared across the company to different areas. One of the key integrations that we have brought into Slack, which has made the most benefit for us, is with a system called Guru. Guru is a knowledge management system that acts as our repository for customer success information. It contains up-to-date information about all of our processes, programs, and technology in one place, and acts as a learning hub for our new users and new team members as well. Through this integration, we can easily search the knowledge base directly from within Slack. The search results are surfaced in the form of cards that can be easily distributed to any other channel or through direct messages. This spreads the best practices as well as answers questions in a repeatable format. We are now at a stage where our account team members are regularly sharing content using the Guru integration across different parts of the organization. Another powerful integration for us has been with Gainsight, our CRM implementation. Gainsight is effectively where all of our enterprise customer success data resides. With Gainsight in Slack, we can easily look up any of our enterprise accounts and check for their health, account status, and any activities that have been performed on that account. We can also write back to the account records for those accounts through the timeline functionality without having the need to log into Salesforce or to log into Gainsight separately. This is especially useful for our teams who are on the road, who are traveling and need information on the go or need to enter their notes on the fly. So in summary, I would say Slack, through its coordination and collaboration, beats any other means. The decision-making in our broad distributed teams has become a more collaborative, transparent process. The time to decision-making for us has also shortened. The most beneficial aspect has been the integrations we have brought into the system, and they truly have added the most value to our community. Through those integrations and through the best practices that we have set up, we have truly significantly impacted the productivity and engagement across our global distributed customer success and sales teams. So thank you. I'll pass you back to Renu for our next speaker.
Thank you, Eraj. And lastly, we hear from Dannie Hertzberg, Senior Director of Mid-Market Sales here at Slack.
Thank you, Renu. Hi, everybody. All right, so as Renu said, I oversee the mid-market sales org in AMER here at Slack. And my hope for today is to emphasize some of the themes that Davey and Eraj just presented, particularly from the people management front. And the thing I was thinking about where Slack helps me the most is juggling this really tough balance between, on one hand, as people leaders, wanting to have a strategic, very high-level view of our organizations, understanding how to drive those forward without getting stuck in the weeds, but at the same time being able to dive in and go really deep when it's appropriate and when it's necessary. So for example, with individual reps on your team, you want to build a really meaningful personal connection with them. You want to understand what's happening with every customer, but you can't know all of that all the time. So I'll talk about how Slack can help you strike that appropriate balance and resolve some of the tension between those two opposing forces. So there's kind of three core parts of our role as people leaders in sales. The first part is building an amazing team and creating an amazing culture that that team can thrive within. The second part is knowing how to stay informed and when and how and if to get involved. And then the third part, which is really fun, is coaching the individuals on the team, figuring out how to celebrate as an organization. And we'll talk through how Slack can underpin each of those. So countless examples of how Slack uses Slack for sales. I'll go through a couple of those examples right now. Let's start with the most fun part of our job, which is building an amazing culture. So we can create employee resource groups, which is basically a way to turn what would be a really big, daunting global channel into smaller communities where people can be a little bit more personal, a little bit more vulnerable, and lean on each other. So one that we have within the sales org at Slack is we have a sales ladies channel. So it's a private channel for women in sales, customer success, business development, and people celebrate one another's life milestones and professional milestones there. People lean on each other for advice. They ask about executive coaches. They ask about career navigation. And it's an amazing way to build community across global borders. So we can really get to know one another. Someone who sits in San Francisco gets to know someone who sits in Australia, and you create this bond even when you're just kind of joining forces virtually. The other thing that I've seen that's been really helpful for me personally, I oversee 8 teams in 5 cities and 2 countries, and there's no way I can get a good sense of the sentiment any given week or any given day in every place. So I rely on Slack, the product, to do that. And what happens is every single manager on the team has their own team channel. In every team channel, we have a programmed prompt within Slack that says, reminder to post your week's highlight, low light, and something that you can use someone's support on. And of course, there's like a little emoji for each one. And I love sitting in on these channels. So in Toronto, for example, if I'm sitting in San Francisco, I can see at the end of the day, East Coast hours on a Friday, what every single individual rep's highlights, lowlights, or area for improvement is where they need help. And I can engage however much or little I want. So I can do a little emoji response just to show that they're being supported, or I can comment within thread there to let them know that I got their back or that I'm celebrating right there with them, and we have a virtual high five that way. So for those of you who are leading teams in any facet of sales, I really recommend that as a way to stay involved and to remember to check in with every single team in every location. And before we can create the amazing culture that we want to be part of and that people can thrive in, you kind of have to hire the right people to create that culture. So one game changer that I've experienced with Slack, the product, is the process of bringing people into the fold and onto my team. And anyone who's been a hiring manager here knows that it's an extremely competitive market, and time to hire is really, really important. Anyone who's been a hiring manager also knows that there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen when we are deciding upon someone's offer. So there is yourself, there's the hiring manager, there is the HR business partner, the recruiter, perhaps your CFO, perhaps the VP sales. And so what we do here at Slack is we create a channel both for recruiting at large in any given geography for any given role, but we create an actual offer channel. So I'll have a channel that's called offer-Renu Gupta. And in that channel, we're talking all about Renu, we're celebrating her merits, we're thinking about the right structure of a role for her, we're chiming in on the appropriate package and start date and all of that. And it's a really great way to have everyone virtually in the same place without trying to coordinate schedules. And most importantly, it helps us actually get an offer out much faster and maximize the likelihood that a star is going to join the Slack team as opposed to having to consider another offer. So the second bucket that I talked about was balancing that tension of staying informed and knowing when to get involved. Accounts channels are a great way to do that. Davey must have touched on this a little bit, but basically what we do is we create a channel for every single customer. We use that same channel pre and post sale for the customer, and it's a way to make sure that all info is gathered in the right place, be it conversations you've had with them, industry news that they're a part of, you name it. And then when you as a leader are brought into a deal pre or post sale and you want to get caught up without bugging everyone for context and having a sit-down meeting, an accounts channel is an amazing way to do that. So someone can pull you in, invite you, mention you, and tell you, how they want you to get involved. All you have to do is scroll up to see everything that's already happened and taken place so that you can jump right in and get involved. And then the third bucket is coaching and celebrating, another highlight of the job. Eraj talked about our integration with Guru, which has been amazing on the coaching front for making sure that everyone has access to the same knowledge that's constantly up to date. So that's one tool I lean on quite a bit. But another thing that's worth talking through is actually using Salesforce reports that are pulled in through our Troops integration in order to coach people, mostly give positive reinforcement when they're going in the right direction, and have a good pulse of whether our numbers are trending in the right way. So in the past, what my life used to look like is I would always have a Salesforce dashboard up. There's probably like 15 different reports in that dashboard, and I'm navigating those to just get a general sense of, is the business looking healthy? What I do now in Slack and through Troops is I have the most important report or part of the dashboard automatically pulled in and posted to me. So I don't have to check email. I don't have to have a Salesforce tab open. And that reinforces whatever the big theme is that we're talking about with the team. So let's say at Slack, it's getting in front of customers and have X number of outbound meetings that you've set where you're getting to know customers and their stories. I get a post in our team-wide channel that says, here's the leaderboard for who's talked to the most customers in this given week. And that's amazing because I don't have to remember to do it, number one. And number two, I can congratulate anyone who's doing an amazing job or going above and beyond on that front, call them out by name, perhaps mention them in the thread of that, and let them know that their hard work is paying off and really being seen. And lastly, Davey talked about this, and this is one of the benefits of having a dispersed sales team, is virtually congregating, not just to share wins, but I think to understand our customers better and their stories. So what I would recommend for anyone who is creating a sales channel like the one that he was suggesting at WeWork is, number one, create a structure for how you want people to tell customer stories. So what works really well at Slack is if we're selling a collaboration tool. So what hurt about the way that the prospect collaborated in the past? What are they trying to fix, and why are they motivated to fix it? And then what does the promised land look like? What is the vision for the end state? And if we can spell all of that out while giving each other a glimpse of the industry and the landscape, then we can all learn from one another, even if we're not having the direct customer interactions. And the last thing I would say for anyone who has a sales channel, invite your board members onto it, assuming things are going well. Invite your full engineering and product team and marketing team and BD team who supports making the sales happen in the first place. And it really feels like a team celebration on there. And everyone wants to learn these stories, and everyone wants to give those virtual high fives together through emojis or through words. So hopefully those are some tactical, channel-oriented ways that you guys can all put all of these things into practice. And this quote should summarize essentially what we're trying to do as leaders, which is connect, motivate a rapidly growing, geographically dispersed team within a work environment that is constantly changing. Thanks.
Thank you, Dannie. Okay, so let's get in the Q&A. Reminder, go to slido.com, enter code SLACK, and select the Pathfinder room. So let's start with the first question. And this is for everybody. So looking back at your Slack journey, Davey, we'll start with you. Looking back at your Slack journey, what would you change or do differently?
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay? First, I mean, short answer is that we would have gotten Slack sooner. It's been really helpful for us. One thing that we did too late in the game is that we created something called a Slack moderator, which we actually assigned a person on the team to iterate on our collaboration in Slack. So that could be taking a specific emoji and having that signify a particular thing that you could look in the channel for and know what that was all about. For example, like the book emoji being something that you could learn from, the question emoji being something that was top of mind for somebody that they didn't know. And so having that person sort of step up into that moderator role has been critical. So I'd certainly recommend that for anybody who's adopting Slack as a new user. Yeah, that's what I would change.
Great. Eraj, how about you?
Yeah, I think I would reference something that Davey said earlier, which is when the implementation is going through, to be really able to migrate from one system or one way of doing things to the new one. So if Slack is our new form of communication, to close out all the other parts that are available. And in a large organization like Autodesk, we have so many tools available that without that change management in place, without that real implementation in place, it can always still feel sort of a fragmented sort of migration.
Okay. And Dannie?
Well, I had a little less control over the Slack rollout at Slack. They came in a few years in. But I would say for me, and yesterday's product announcement, thank God, has changed this. It took me probably 3 months to figure out how to truly express myself on Slack. So I didn't know how to bold my text when I wanted to, scream or shout excitement. I didn't know how to do italics. My emoji game was really bad. And so, no, I'm personally just very excited about being able to edit text in Slack and communicate as my true self in there.
I can't wait to see it either.
Yeah.
Okay, so Eraj, you talked about Guru and using it within your organization. The question is, for Guru, how do you avoid duplicate content or it getting out of date?
With Guru specifically?
Yes.
Yes. So Guru is one of the key reasons we acquired Guru is because of the fact that content can actually be kept fresh on a cadence that we control. So for example, if it is content that is likely to go out of date relatively rapidly, you can create that particular piece of content to be on a 2-week refresh. at which point it gets flagged for whoever the administrator is for that content to go in and review it to understand whether it's up to date or not. If it is content which is evergreen and in 6 months or 12 months will not change, then the cadence for update is kept on a longer basis. So we actually have people in our content team who monitor the entire system, not only for new content creation, but also to keep all the other content up to date based on all the other repositories that's coming in from like Confluence or SharePoint or other places.
Okay. Davey, are your sales channels all public, private, or both? How do you determine when it should be public or private?
So both. We have some channels that are just unique to the people involved in a deal. For example, the accounts channel would be just the cross-functional stakeholders who are making a decision on that deal. And then we may even take that one step further, like a drop-down might be like an approvals channel where leadership is discussing something like a discount approval or a unique use case that we might actually remove the individual contributors from until we've had a chance to look at all the cases presented and make a business decision and move on. So it's sort of a mix of private and public channels.
Great. We do something similar at Slack as well. Okay, and this is actually a question for you as well.
Sure.
What do you see as the use cases for Slack as compared to Chatter?
Good question. So I think that it comes down to that Salesforce and Salesforce adoption and Slack living. Our teams are really successful in collaborating with each other and moving deals forward quickly when they're living in Slack. But one challenge that I'll be honest about is that in our business there's a strong need for collaboration across segments. So there will be times when a customer, let's say in the mid-market space, walks in for a tour and ends up touring with a person who is not the account expert that's been assigned to them in their segment. So there may need to be a handoff process that would happen from the small business team to the medium business team. And the effectiveness of using Chatter in that use case is that handoff is actually logged as an activity in Salesforce. So when you're in Salesforce and you're looking at the whole history of that opportunity, you can actually see that transpire. And if you're setting a very clear prescription for the team in terms of how to hand off that opportunity, you actually want to have a historical record for how that's taken place in Salesforce. So one thing that I would certainly love to see is the ability to have a Slack conversation, like a DM between those two account executives in different segments, actually log to Salesforce so that we can have that same historical record that Chatter provides, but still we can live in the tool that is best for our business. So that's how I'd talk about Slack and Chatter.
And this is kind of a continuation of that, but Dannie, how do you manage deal approvals and escalations?
So it's that balance I was talking about of wanting to dive into the details, but I don't want to see every single deal that doesn't require my approval necessarily. So we have an automated workflow that's kicked off. If a rep needs some sort of a special case scenario with a deal, it might get escalated up to me. I get an app mention, which means I get a notification saying, Dannie, you should address this right now. It's not like passive end-of-day stuff. I dive straight in. From within Slack, I look at the notes to see what makes for that special case. And then I typically handle the approval within the app, usually on the go. I'm usually doing something like that on my mobile phone. And it's pretty straightforward. If for whatever reason I end up needing more context than what's automatically pushed through in Salesforce, from Salesforce into Slack or from Steelbrick into Slack, then I typically jump to that accounts channel that I was talking about earlier and look to see what the context is on the account.
Eraj, how do you keep connected with sales and upsell teams?
Sales and upsell teams? So we have our Gainsight and Slack integrations are tightly connected. Our entire sales team and the larger account teams all connect through to the account record as well as Salesforce. We have channels set up specifically for the enterprise customers that we cover through customer success that allows anybody to communicate irrespective of their functional sort of role. So that includes all the account managers, all the folks from premium support, from our services group, all in one location around the central entity of either an existing enterprise account or upcoming prospects from our named accounts segment. So that collaboration and sync actually occurs in Slack, but it leverages the Gainsight integration and Salesforce in the background.
That's great, and actually there's a continuation of that where people want to know if there's any examples of automation that you've leveraged in Slack to accelerate the speed of communication.
To accelerate speed in communication. Well, I'm planning a few integrations, but I haven't quite gotten to the level of automation just yet. I think the journey that we're on has been to bring the larger sets of users from different functional areas to converge into one location. And now the next step in our journey is to actually add on automation on top of it. So we're having a lot of conversations around how to take workflows that connect the different systems together and help with that automation, but we're not quite there yet.
Okay. Davey, your team's in the field a lot. So how do they give product feedback or influence the roadmap?
Sure. So I'll just speak to the dispersion of our teams. Generally, like my team today covers 5 cities within Northern California. So all the way from Sacramento down to San Jose. So this team is unified as one, but sits together maybe on a monthly basis. So really hard to bring them together, and also for them to for them to influence the product and where we're going. So we have a really robust development team that sort of works with our physical product, designing our spaces, and so there's a lot of communication that happens on Slack with bringing sales and product together so that they can have a meaningful conversation about what's blocking a deal. For example, is there an objection around privacy? Is there a concern around IT or around the actual use case of the office? And our members range from companies like freelancers all the way to global enterprise organizations that are moving their headquarters into WeWork. So you can imagine the diversity of use of our physical space. So we're able to bring those two functions together, as Eraj mentioned, to have a meaningful conversation about how we can do better.
Great. I think we have time for one more question. So I'll start with Dannie, and maybe we all can answer this one. If you were to advise your audience here today that are considering a similar journey, what is one thing they absolutely must do and one thing you would advise them to avoid?
The number one thing I would avoid, let's say you're kicking off a rollout of Slack and you're getting everyone on board, I would immediately delete a general channel if it's tempting to do that, even just random without like what kind of random within what group, because I think those can get really, really noisy. And the second that your collaboration tool feels noisy, it's really hard to know what to pay attention to, and it's really hard to get the value that we intend to provide. So have some sort of norms for naming conventions around each of your channels and try to stay consistent around those. And whenever possible, avoid something that is so general, like general, that you don't know what it actually means or what it's there for. And then what someone should absolutely do, we can talk about this offline, but I think utilizing Reactgees as a project management system is such a great way to quickly send the message that something isn't slipping through the cracks and you're on top of it. So if I send a document to legal, very quickly someone from our legal team will respond with a little emoji of eyeballs saying, I'm looking at this and I know it didn't just go into a black hole. And once it's complete, they have a little green check mark next to it that says, this is all set, ready to ship. And I highly encourage you to come up with your own norms like that help communication speed up.
Makes sense. I think I would advise setting up what's in it for me model right from the outset so that people know the value they're actually getting by participating in Slack. For example, if I showed the Guru integration and the Troops integration to our customer success and sales operatives, there's no doubt that they would be in there on a daily basis and conducting their entire business life from the integration. So I would do that, along with a basic level of enablement that gets them over that initial hurdle of becoming proficient users in the system. And the one thing that I would avoid is really choice. So collaboration involves everybody being in the same place and collaborating. If you have even one other alternative to that particular location, it's going to break down eventually. So it's not a great thing to say, but I think we need to limit the amount of choice that we have in our collaboration spaces just so that we can converge on the one place that is our true sort of landing spot.
I think for me, the advice that I would give would be to be realistic that that we use multiple communication platforms for different purposes, and because they have different meanings and uses, it's really important to talk about them. And I think just the same way that we think about our Slack sales announcements channel as a digital sales floor, if you think about the physical sales floor as it exists in a company where everybody sits together, you're probably talking about the norms of your culture that exist on a day-to-day basis. How do you communicate around certain things, and also like what constitutes urgency, and what conversations should we have in the moment versus via this channel versus that channel. So I'd highly encourage, either in creating a document or just in creating a regular routine of having a dialogue about how meaningful this tool is, what can it be from a cultural perspective, and also how we should use it so that we're maximizing the value that it can provide. And in the conversations that I've had with my team about that, they've been really productive, and every time that we iterate and make a decision about how to use the tool better, it's more effective. We close more business. So that would be my recommendation.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining our panel today. Hopefully you guys learned about how to use Slack for Sales to increase your efficiencies within your sales cycle. For the questions that we didn't get to, we will answer them within the app. I believe we have a session coming up here at 2:45, and that's it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good.